אוקיי, וזה מקליט גם? אוקיי. Brilliant. Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too.
How are you, Professor Agassi?
I'm fine, thank you very much. You look gorgeous.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It's only the lightening, you know. It's a fiction, the fiction world, you know. It's the metaverse. Thank you. You're too kind. Thank you. I must say that I feel it's a very important, you know, moment for me as a person, you know, as a human being to meet you. Beyond, you know, beyond the discussion that we are having, because I've been listening to you, and I must tell you that you convey such a sense of humbleness and deep empathy to the human condition, even though you're talking about, you know, so many subjects, but in the end of it, there is a sense of courageous humbleness and deep empathy for the humankind.
It's only awareness of human suffering.
Yeah, but still, it's so. First of all, thank you. I know it took us a while because of the corona and on all the other issues. So I just want to present you, if it's okay, to our audience here in Israel and also in other parts of the world, because we have fortunately, you know, various, you know, groups of people, Jewish, the Jewish congregation and others that are listening to us. So I'm incredibly excited and I don't even have the words for that, okay? to introduce you, Professor Joseph Agassi. He is an Israeli academic with contribution to logic, scientific methods, philosophy. He likes to introduce himself as a philosopher without religion, but with a real religious background, and probably he can also talk about that. And we are going to talk about Israel, which is an official Jewish state, but with a society that rejects the values of Judaism, while the opposite is required, to recognize Israel as a secular state and a Jewish society, but with Jewish values and culture in its heart. So I think this is going to be the topic, but because Professor Agassi has such deep understanding regarding science and the nature and everything in between, and sometimes you don't have to say in between, but you know, there is a collaboration between science and nature. I wanted to start with him with a question which is so relevant to this time of disruption, which is the issue, the subject of validity of which you know leads us usually to feeling secure and safe, and the opposite, the unknown, and so forth in our world. How can you? I know that these issues are very dear to your heart. Would you like to share and teach us a little bit about your point of view about that?
Yes, because of my religious background, it always puzzled me that philosophers look for certitude. There is no certitude. There can be no certitude. Life is a window of opportunity, and we have to seize the day. And that is all there is to it. I think that anybody who is familiar with any religion is aware of the profound skepticism that all religion conveys. Trust not in humans, but in the Rock of the Ages. This is what the book, the Psalms says, and this is what Spinoza says when he wants to defend Machiavelli, that Machiavelli's major thesis is trust not princess.
May I ask, I think that you, if it's okay that I'm asking, and if it's not an invasion to your privacy, I think that it's a very deep notion that you believe from very young age. I mean, in a sense, you rebelled in when you were younger, when you were quite young.
Yes, I rebelled because at the age of 16 or so, I lost God, and I looked hard for him. I looked everywhere.
How what does it mean you lost God? I mean, how can someone lose God? You probably, yeah, of course.
כן, Anna בעוד שעה.
Because it means that you had God, which is in any case a very unusual state where I never had God.
I grew up religious. I took my religion as given, as a matter of course, and about the age of 16, two things bothered me. First, that I found it difficult to pray. I didn't know that Maimonides says it's not allowed to pray. Maimonides says you say your prayer because you are instructed to. But if you think that the Lord has nothing to do but to listen to you and to have you beg him for any small thing that you need, this is sacrilegious. And I didn't know that. And the other thing is that I found illiberalism in the Jewish tradition, which I found hard to take. There is a story of a man who collected wood on the Sabbath and Moses had him stoned to death. And this bothered me greatly.
How come he, this was such a harsh punishment for, a small mistake? The relationship between the...
This is very hard to take. Moses is the paradigm of the ideal human in Jewish tradition, and he had a man stoned to death. And because of violation of some rule that hurts nobody, it would be easier to take it if the man were a murderer rather than a man who collected wood on the Sabbath.
I see. So from this, this was I wouldn't say eureka moment, but this is where you said you parted. The gap started. This is where, okay, wow.
This, as I told you, two things, that I couldn't pray and that I found Judaism illiberal.
Interesting. Even though you're in your heart Jewish, right?
Oh yes, decidedly. I deeply regret that Israel is anti-Jewish.
Okay, we will get to there. Can we speak about certainty and uncertainty? Because right now, people all around feel, such a huge amount of uncertainty, and they don't know how to deal with it.
It's very funny because people invest in the stock exchange without any hesitation, and there is nothing more uncertain than the stock exchange.
So how do you think, why do you think it's happening? Why people are so willing to put all the money in the stock exchange if there is such a high uncertainty regarding the outcome of such an act?
Because they consider the betting fair. The concept of fair betting is traditional.
Can you elaborate?
Yes, when they found out that out of 10 boats from Italy to Caesarea, 9 reached Caesarea, they knew that you have to insure a boat for at least 10% of its worth.
I see.
That's a fair bet.
Okay, wonderful. And I think you have, if I'm not mistaken, I read some things, not enough, unfortunately, but you think that uncertainty has a crucial role in scientific work.
Oh, decidedly so. The statistics appears in physics from the start, and yet there was always the supposition that the statistics is due to uncertainty of lack of knowledge. This is how Laplace, who is one of the leaders in the field, spoke about statistics. He said it is the degree of ignorance. And Einstein tried very hard to check that in quantum theory you can say that, and he arrived at the difficulty that we still don't know how to handle, a difficulty well known as the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox. Rosen, by the way, was a professor in Haifa.
Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, when you were quite young and you put it on the table while you were still a student, there were harsh reactions against that.
Yes, I was a difficult student, both in the rabbinical school and in the university. So I have a double stigma, yes.
Why do you think it was so hard for people to accept that something that, if I'm not mistaken, was already said before by Einstein, nonetheless? So why? Yeah.
Because of a very simple philosophical issue. When you grow up, you find out that not everybody belongs to your culture, that there are different cultures. And then you ask yourself, why am I clinging to my culture? Is it just that I was lucky to be born into the right culture? And this problem, which the Greeks raised with all its power, was solved by Plato, who said, once you are certain, you know that you are right. And this is true, only it's excessive. You can be right without being certain, and you can be certain and misunderstand what you're certain about. So everything is open. And again, I got this from my religion. They say in the prayer, if a human would live thousands of years, he still won't be able to follow your calculations. Your means the Lord's.
Yes, I see. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, that you also think that it's a practical tool to be uncertain. I mean, it's a state of mind, but also it's like a real tool, right? Meaning,
Indeed. If everything is predetermined, then you cannot do anything. And if we assume that we are able to influence, to act in the world, then there should be some open options, which means uncertainty.
You know, one of my teachers, Kevin Cayley, I don't know whether you know Kevin Cayley, he created Wired, which is a technology, yes. Okay.
Yes,
and he's a very wise person, and he said something very interesting. He says that when there is an acceleration of knowledge, and if you understand that every good answer is simply a door for better questions.
Yes, that's very nice.
He says that if you're doing the right thing, the amount of ignorance is doubling every time you have an answer.
This is already in Plato. Socrates said that.
Really? Can you tell me? I didn't know that. Okay, can you tell us?
That every knowledge raises more problems than it solves. Yes, certainly.
Okay. So when you teach, your students or you mentor people, how do you assist them becoming, instead of just, I don't know, I wouldn't say an academic concept, to an everyday tool?
I have one standard answer. Why are you here? Why do you do what you're doing? What moves you? And people are often surprised by this question. People come to me for help in writing doctorates. I'm known for being able to help people who are stuck with the doctorates. And my first question is, why do you want a doctorate? And usually people are stunned by the question, which stuns me. This is the most obvious question.
Why they're being stunned, do you think?
Because they never thought about it. They took things for granted, which is fine when you are growing up, but not when you are elderly.
Okay, so what do you usually answer? What did you usually answer?
I usually advise people, for example, my best advice is don't read a book you don't want to read. This is a part, by the way, of Socrates' advice of not doing what you don't want to do. Socrates said his greatness was that he refused to do what he didn't want to do.
Okay, meaning in a sense, it's more important to make a decision what you don't want to do than what you want to do.
Exactly so. Now, many people told me, if I took your advice, I would stay in bed all day long.
Really? Oh my God.
So they said, and I said to them, try it and see what happens.
And did they do it?
Usually they are too much afraid. No?
Meaning you are showing them that there is a way to let go.
Let go is the right word. You are wonderful. Yes.
Okay, so only when you let go from what you think is the right thing or the way things are supposed to be or what the way you think you should be, you are free to discover the true nature, the true nature or the real purpose or whatever is behind the veil. This is
quite so. Quite generally, when you want to find out where a wall stands, you have to try to step over it, move to the other side to see that the wall is there. You have to know a boundary, said Kant, from both sides. So you have to exaggerate. If you have a sailboat, you use your sail a bit more than necessary and you go back. Because then you know where the wind should use the sail.
My mind wandered to the issue of the mirror.
Yes.
Now I was thinking, you stand in front of a mirror and then if you let go, what are you going to see in the mirror?
Exactly. People are afraid to look at the mirror.
Yeah. Wow. So in your work, I mean, how did you use, validity and certainty and on the other hand, willing to let go? Where did these things lead you in your work?
First of all, as I told you, I never sought certitude. And when I studied philosophy, which goes all around certitude, I was very surprised. And I had to understand why people sought certitude. It's not a psychological question. It is an epistemological question. It's a question of what do I know and do I know that I know and so on. And we don't. All our knowledge is conjectural. When you look at the history of ideas, of thinking, you find that you have sympathy with certain thinkers and no sympathy with other thinkers. And it has to do with their centering on their problems. And if you have any empathy, when you read anybody, you ask, why did that person write the book? And if you don't know why that person wrote the book is closed to you. And usually a good writer says in the preface why they wrote the book. But out of a very poor tradition, we don't read prefaces. I remember the textbooks in my very early days, there were prefaces to the teacher. So the preface to the teacher, that is, the student was not expected to read the preface. That is to say, compulsory education is really the enemy.
Wow. Ooh. Can you elaborate on that? This is...
The answer is very philosophical and very straightforward. It's forbidden to teach.
Meaning you should give people the tools to learn by themselves, to investigate the world, to explore.
Exactly. This is the very famous parable of the difference between fish and an angling rod. I
see. Meaning only give them,
the angling rod, not the fish.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, not the fish. Okay. But but what you're saying, if I may say, which I so totally identify, but for our listeners, it means that you have deep faith in people's ability to learn,
No. In people's wish to learn.
Okay. And meaning in their curiosity.
Exactly so. You're quite right.
Okay.
And curiosity is inbuilt. My teacher, Papa, says even puppies wish to learn.
Even puppies, yeah, they do. I have a puppy, so I know.
So,
She's very naughty. Yeah, she wants to learn everything, but on my, on my expense.
On your expense, yes. Very nice. Yes, you're quite right. Yes.
So that's interesting. So if I may say, we need to speak about science, but because it's so interesting. If you now have the ability to create, the school of the future, especially because now we are in creative destruction, this whatever. And everybody knows that the knowledge of yesterday, the certainty of yesterday is totally irrelevant, even might be dangerous. What would you teach?
My model is Summerhill. Summerhill was a school that rests on two assumptions. First of all, that compulsory education is unavoidable. Secondly, that one should not educate. That is to say, compulsory education is two items. First, gathering kids in one place. My son calls it minimum security jail. And I think this is right. And I think we can't avoid it. However negative it is, we have to control our kids to some extent, and we have no time for it. So we have these schools which are minimum security jails. But inside, you should have things that arouse appetites. You should have books, you should have you should have play things, toys of all sorts. You should have adults helping kids develop their interest and so on. But the free school is something that creates enormous opposition from parents.
And did your children went to such a school?
One yes, one not. It was a matter of conditions of possibility. My daughter went to Montessori school, which is half free. Maria Montessori was the first Italian woman doctor. And she tells the story in her autobiography that she saw a little girl playing on the floor and she picked her up, and the little girl continued playing, not noticing that she was picked up because she was concentration. And Maria Montessori says, at this very moment, I realized that everything they told me about kids is wrong.
Wow.
That's a marvelous thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
she was really a great character.
Wow.
I have a mixed feeling about her philosophy, because she said kids play, if not on the table, under the table, so better mix toys with learning. And I think learning and playing can come together.
Do you know the Ken Robinson famous story that about the girl who was in the kindergarten and she was drawing, and then the teacher came in and said, listen, we are having lunch, please come. She says, no, I'm paying God eating lunch. And the teacher says, but no one knows how God looks. And she says, well, they will know in a minute. That's it. So
yes, very nice. Yes.
It's he was, unfortunately he's not with us anymore, but at least in spirit still with us, but unfortunately not with the body. But he was definitely speaking about that, in many ways. So if we take it further and the learning not on a personal level, but as a culture, as a civilization, as a society, where do you put science? Where would you put science? How much energy, resources should be put to if you could do something and create a new I don't know, framework, and also resources for science, what would you do, especially if under this
I want to tell you, my late wife was very interested in promoting women's equality. And she found out that in kibbutzim, girls are receiving poorer education than boys, although the educators do not differentiate between them. And she tried to find out, and she found empirically that little girls in kibbutzim are not as motivated to study because they look around and see that women are discriminated against. This is a very powerful perception. In other words, when kids look around, first of all, they find discriminations. They also find that the parents fight. And as Janusz Korczak said, if the parents conceal the fighting, then kids learn both to fight and to be a hypocrite. It's marvelous. So the main thing is to respect children. I'm a great follower of Janusz Korczak. If you respect children, everything settles in its place. Now people say, how can you respect children when they are with so little capacities? And Korczak said, old people also have little capacities. Treat children like old people, that would be fine.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
May I ask what is your opinion about Winnicott?
About Winnicott?
Donald Winnicott, yeah, Winnicott.
I have great sympathy with him. There's no question that he was very sensitive. That's the most important thing about him.
Yeah, and no one could, it's very interesting because he created some wonderful methods, but no one is capable, you know, of really, I mean,
Yes.
It's very hard to.
Yes, methods are a matter of contingency. It depends on the conditions and what is expected and so on. Certainly. By the way, there is no question that countries under siege have education different from countries that are in peace. So all these things have to be considered, but they are technicalities. The principle is respect children.
Respect the children, okay.
Deserve respect like everybody else.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know the story of, I think, Virginia Satir, you know, she's the mother of, Virginia Satir, she's, well, she's like the creator of this, you know, looking at the family as a system. And
yes, I don't know, I regret to say yes.
She's very interesting character, very colorful. And anyway, she had these parents coming, you know, and complaining about the child, 5 years old. She says, you know, go down to this, you know, there is a shop here, you know, for any kind of, you know, things that if you sewing things. So go and buy yourself some small cushions and go all day on these cushions, you know, in this height, and see how the world looks like when you're so short. And then come and speak with me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that is very nice indeed.
Yeah, she was very clever. So I think I read some things that you wrote, and you talk, well, at least I understood that way, that you put a lot of emphasis, and it was very fascinating for me because it's also related to uncertainty and you know, opening options on the value and depth of questions.
Yes, certainly. I must tell you, when I met Karl Popper, my teacher, he wanted to find out something about me. He said, how can I help you? And so on. It was very nice. And I said, I have a crazy idea that nobody takes seriously. And that is, people think that we go from answers to answers. And I think we go from questions to better questions. And for this reason, he accepted me as a student.
Wow. Wow. Can you tell to our audience, what does it mean? Can you teach us, what does it mean going not from answer to answers, but the question, can you give us some example? And
if you have a series of ups and downs, the question is, are you up or are you down? Schopenhauer said, people say we go from happiness to happiness, and I say we go from misery to misery. That's Schopenhauer. He was a pessimist.
Oh, yeah, I can understand. Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting.
You see, when we look around, we look at our immediate past, we can always see missed opportunities. This is the standard fact. We don't see the opportunities, or we don't seize them. This is why the Roman slogan, seize the day, because people don't. And the question is, how can you explain this? And the answer is, we just don't look, or we are just too busy, or we are afraid. The question is,
yeah.
Every soldier will tell you, when you are in the front, people tell you, don't worry that you are afraid. Don't let fear direct you.
But it's of course it's not relevant because you're totally frightened. Yes, I haven't been to the war. I mean, I'm a woman, but I'm saying I can't even know. So, but you know, I think about it. Well, probably you're totally frightened. What do you mean? You know, this is even it's even a biological mechanism. You know, the surviving mechanism. It has nothing to do even with your mind, with your brain. In the sense.
Quite right. That's it. The question is, how do you behave under fear? Not how do you avoid fear?
So this is really the big question.
This is the big question.
May I ask you something which is a little bit personal, but if I'm invading, please let me know.
No problem. I don't have anything to hide.
No. For me, even though I wasn't born at that point, of course, the Holocaust is like, it's like, you know, it's an enormous event, let's put it this way, you know, a tragic event.
Decidedly.
And, you know, I find myself, you know, it's okay that there is a day, you know, that everybody has to remember Holocaust. I don't think there is a day that goes by without me thinking about the Holocaust. I don't feel. And then there is the question about what you said right now, because I'm quite sure that people at the Holocaust in the camps were always under fear. I mean, there is no question. I mean, there was
no question about it.
You could have died every minute, and
yeah, life was very cheap. Yes.
Yeah, death was very cheap, unfortunately. And I was wondering, how can you take the idea of how do you act under fear and relate to such extreme situation, which unfortunately can arise around the,
On the Holocaust, I have two private stories. One, my mother-in-law was in concentration camps for 7 years, both in Russia and in Germany. And
wow, both, but twice.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah, and she wrote in her autobiography that people asked her how she survived, and she answered, because of friendships.
Wow.
And my wife wrote about the camps, wrote very interesting books, and she spoke there about a new concept that is camp families. In the concentration camps, there were people who were a bit stronger, and they collected weaker people around them. And these were camp families between 2 and more people. And that this helped survival. They say if you belong to a camp family, you had a better chance to survive, not because of objective conditions, because these were the same, but because of different attitudes.
That's interesting. So what you're saying, in a sense, sense of belonging is a contra-power,
yes,
against fear.
Yeah, that's the one story. The other story has to do with me more than with anyone else. I learned about the Holocaust from a picture taken, by the way, as it turns out, by Hitchcock of a concentration camp in Europe. This was after the war, of course.
I didn't understand how come. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Exactly, that's the answer. Immediately after the war. And by the way, the British were interested in the Holocaust because the Irish were courting the Nazis, and they wanted to control the Irish nationalist movement. That was one of the reasons. And when I saw the ovens in Mauthausen concentration camp, I was shocked, and I remember it till today. And this was after the war, namely after the Holocaust. During the Holocaust, the Jewish settlement in Palestine concealed the facts from the public. This is well-known fact nowadays, a literature about it, but the fact is it was concealed. I didn't know about the Holocaust at the time.
I think you're very courageous. I can't go. I don't think I'm capable of going. I mean, I don't think I'll survive it. I mean, it's too, for me, it's enough to me to close my eyes, you know, and to be standing in the rain with this.
It is unthinkable. People do not realize, they think of the Holocaust as genocide. Now, genocide is ubiquitous. It was in antiquity, it is still today, and the Holocaust is much worse than genocide.
Because it...
First of all, it was because killing Jews was a national obligation. There is a book showing that the fight of the Nazis against the Jews hampered the war effort, and they went on with it till the very last day.
How did it hamper the war effort? Can you explain?
The trains were needed for other purposes.
Wow. And still,
yes, they went on as a national duty, as a national obligation. There's no question about it. I don't know if you read the book, Mein Kampf.
I can't. I'm not strong as you are. I mean, the presence of evil.
Yes, the book is evil. There's no question. And when it discusses, however poor and really low level it is, when it comes to the Jewish question, which is chapter 5, it goes lower than that. And it is amazing how bad the book is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think, but have you been visiting Germany after the war? I mean, have you been?
Oh, yes. My mother-in-law was German. And I've been to Germany soon after the war, yes.
And how was the feeling? I mean,
oh, dreadful, dreadful. There's no question. I remember like now going on a Sunday in the middle of Frankfurt, empty streets because it was Sunday. And I walked with a painter and we stopped at the shop window of an artist and we looked at the paintings there. And they were all realist because they were all abstract because the Nazis were anti-abstract art. And a man passed by and he pointed at these abstract pictures and said, these people should be vernichtet, destroyed. And he went on, I don't know who he was, he didn't introduce himself, just a man passing by and pointing at the pictures, the abstract pictures, and says, these people should be finished. Unbelievable.
Meaning there is no sense and respect for human life. I mean, this is it. I mean, life.
After the war, certainly. There is no question, as is well known, immediately after the war, many Nazi leaders pretended to be anti-Nazi and took over important positions. Not the Prime Minister, Konrad Adenauer, he was a decent man, but he himself complained that the country was full of ex-Nazis who took over many important positions. When I speak of the peak of Nazism in Germany, and I say it was in the late 40s, and people correct me.
Wow.
If you consider the fact that young people in the 30s went to the youth movement of the Nazi party, Hitlerjugend they were called, and that there were people in position 10 years, 15 years later, what can you expect?
And today, what do you think, what's happening today?
No, today is different. I taught in Germany very soon after the war, and I found that the students in my classes were of two kinds, either extremely gentle and sensitive or crude, and nothing in between.
How did you deal with this?
Hmm?
How did you deal with it?
Oh, first of all, I taught what I taught. I taught economics, by the way. I'm a physicist, but I taught economics because that was what was required. So it was very, very amusing. What can I say?
Okay. I think you have deep thought about what should be the essence of Israel. I mean, here, the states, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that you think that there are some issues that we should take care of. And I think, can you share, because I think what you're thinking.
Of course, I wrote a book about it. I say Israel has to be a normal country. Israel has to treat its citizens as equal, and it does not. It treats its non-Jewish citizens as citizens of second class. I, for example, think there should be a universal mobilization, and everybody looks at me and thinks pitifully on my naivete.
Can you tell? I'm not sure that most of the people understand what you're talking about.
In Israel, there are two weak groups, each 20% of the population, the religious Jewish and the non-Jewish. Because most Israelis are Jewish by descent, but not by culture, not by religion, not by practice. They are Jews because their identity cards say that they are Jews. That's something like that. And I think these two weak subpopulations have one thing in common: they don't serve in the military. People don't know that in Israel, religious people and non-Jews don't serve in the military. And I think they should.
Do you think they want?
It's not a question. Nobody wants to go to the military. No mother wants her child to be a soldier. I mean, no sane mother, let's say, let's put it more carefully.
Okay. So you think so this is, so what you're saying is that we have two standards here, and the outcome are devastating in many senses to everybody, even to the ones that are, considered as belonging to the higher class or whatever.
You see, this is what Adam Smith discovered, that discrimination is expensive to both sides of the discrimination.
Oh, I didn't know this.
This is his discovery.
What do you think it's cost, the more privileged one? What do you think it's cost, this group?
First of all, they lost their nationality. Israel does not recognize the Israeli nation. There is now a law which says this, which is, to me, amazing. Netanyahu effected one important thing, and that is the law that Israel belongs to the Jewish people. That is to say, a European or an American Jew has more stake in Israel than an Israeli Muslim, which I think is very unhealthy.
Yeah. So you think we should, first of all, correct it. Do you think there is any chance that it will be done in the coming future?
No, I think it will be done only when Israel will be on the verge of extinction, and nobody wants that.
No, no one wants that. What else do you think we should change in our, Israel? I mean, we have.
No, I think Israel is a wonderful place. I think it really is unbelievable what a wonderful condition we have out of sheer luck, not that we earned it in any way, but really to be an Israeli is very lucky. And yet we are shooting ourselves in the foot.
By this. Okay. So do you think if we don't want to get to the verge of destruction, what do you think? Can you think about any kind of social, movement? I don't know, trends that will assist. I would
love to have it. Yes, I think any group that would fight for general mobilization is my heart.
Is your heart? Okay, wonderful. If you look into the future, like 50 years from now, how do you think the world is going to look like?
I have no idea. You see, the internet is such a marvelous thing, and it came out of nothing. It didn't come to replace anything, and it changed our lives so profoundly. I think it's something marvelous.
What is the most astonishing, in your opinion? What's the most
having a personal computer that enables you to converse with somebody across the ocean, and it costs you nothing. I remember a telephone from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem was a big thing and costs a lot of money and so on. And nowadays you can converse with people in the United States without any expense.
Or with people from Mars. Right now I'm on Mars, so.
Yes, you're quite right, yes.
I'm joking, of
course.
Really
for the Martians, yes.
You don't know how wonderful it is. We have some Israelis here, so I'm joking. Anyway,
that's all right.
An Israeli colony here. So what you're saying is that. So what you're saying, which is beautiful, is that we need so much imagination regarding the future, and we don't really have it because it's beyond.
I'll give you an example, which is the most important one. Karl Marx observed the so-called capitalist market, and he found that efficiency increases with concentration of power. And so he predicted concentration of power that should lead to success of socialism. Excuse me, Agassi. Now, the dynamo changed this completely. The dynamo was discovered long before Marx was born, but it became technically available only with Edison. Yes. כן, בבקשה, עוד רבע שעה, חצי שעה. And The fact,
we talked about dynamo, the dynamo. We
yes,
talked about.
Yes, I remember. The fact.
I'm sorry.
No, the fact that Marx's prediction was based on technology. And so he thought that he was certain in his predictions. And he forgot that technology depends on knowledge, and knowledge is unpredictable in principle. If I knew what will happen tomorrow in the field of science, then it happens already today. So in principle, you can't predict the future of science. Besides, there are always scientific revolutions, things that were considered utterly impossible, like splitting the atom. Atom means unsplittable. And the whole progress of 19th century chemistry and physics was atomic. And then in 1896, somebody split the atom. It was Becquerel, he got Nobel Prize for it.
Yes.
So complete surprise that you couldn't imagine.
Yeah, or now with DeepMind, with, you know, with the alpha, with the process that they're doing with the proteins, it's amazing, you know, it's going to change the face of medicine, and CRISPR and gene editing, and yeah.
Of course, what we look forward is to the ability to process celluloid. The moment you can do that, we solve all food problems.
Yeah. So what was the biggest surprise for you, if you're looking in the last 50 years of science and technology? What was, you know, for you the biggest surprise or the biggest innovation, in your opinion?
The biggest innovation is the ability to synthesize noble gases.
Really? Why this?
Because I studied Pauli's explanation of noble gases, and it was a marvelous explanation. And this very explanation created the technique with which they synthesized all sorts of chemicals from noble gases.
If you are right now 20 years old and you have to make a decision regarding at least what you're going to invest the 20, 30 years of your life in, you know, researching, you know.
I would do the same as I did many years ago.
Really? Wow.
Yes, I'm a philosopher and I went to study physics. And my physics professors really rightly disliked me. They didn't want to invest in me when knowing that I was going to leave the field.
But still, I had, for example, I heard your discussion regarding Plato and Aristo, and you talked about the fact that science is always, even then, was replacing religious in a sense. I mean,
yes, quite so. Yes, quite so. Especially with Plato. Yes.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that it was worthwhile investing in you, because you took their ideas and you put it in the different context.
My science professor didn't think that way, yes. And you see, my ideal was Einstein, always Einstein. And Einstein was a philosopher. Einstein said, a scientist is a philosopher in overalls. It's so appeals to me.
Really? This is what I didn't know that.
That's what he's saying. A scientist is a philosopher in overalls. He said, science without metaphysics, to the extent that it is at all possible, is muddled.
Okay, you probably haven't met him in person, huh?
No, I wanted very much to go to America to meet him, but I didn't have the money, so I went to England. When I went to America, he was dead a year.
Do you speak with him in your head?
Oh, all the time, yes.
That's what I thought.
With Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell told in his autobiography that he spoke with Leibniz and always told him he didn't know how important he was and how fruitful.
Wow. So you have 3 people living in your head.
Oh, yes. But mostly Faraday. I wrote a book on Faraday.
Yeah. He was magnificent, huh?
He was magnificent. He was on so many counts such a marvelous person.
And he was so generous and so...
Yes.
I read about... Yeah, sorry.
The most funny story about him is that kids would meet him in the street and have a word with him and then run around the block to meet him again.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
He was childless.
Yeah, and you know that you know, he went, and when he didn't have time, so he went. When he had some time, he went to gave another lecture, and it was so. What is the explanation? I mean, I'm thinking about such a person who knows so much and you know, curious and really want to learn all the time, but still, he was so generous with his knowledge.
Oh yes. By the way, he never took any patent.
What, this I didn't know.
He wanted to be a gentleman. As you know, he was from a lower class, and he always played the gentleman.
Yeah, but I think it goes beyond social convention. I think this kind of deep, I think, generosity, it lies in fundamentally understanding the human condition differently. Do you think?
Yes, yes. Faraday saw his salvation in the scientific world. And when he came to work for Davy, who was the leading scientist at the time, Davy looked at him with pity and said, in time you will learn how wrong your opinion about the scientific world is. And he never changed his opinion on the scientific world. And he always was stunned by the fact that he was so maltreated.
Unbelievable, huh?
Unbelievable. And I think he died senile because of that.
How come? What do you mean?
He wrote a letter to his only student. He had one student, in which he said, I read a paper in which I mentioned, and that brought my memory back, and I am going to write 2 papers. And he wrote 2 papers.
Wow.
Because somebody mentioned him.
Wow.
He had all the medals possible as a discoverer, but not as a thinker. And his only student, Tyndall, wrote the book Faraday as a discoverer. That's why I wrote the book Faraday as a thinker.
Wow. So what do you mean in the sense that if we are curious enough, we can create bridges which are beyond time and space?
Yes.
Even with past, not only with future.
Yes, certainly, even with the past.
Meaning in the sense that we are free from any kind of obstacles if we only...
Look, when I am asked what is the most important discovery that ever happened, I say the dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs. Why the dinosaurs?
Because that is a warning for us.
Do you know what when Margaret Mead was asked when humanity was created, what I would say, you know, civilization or community or society? Do you know what she said? She said, I don't remember the exact date, so forgive me for that, but when she found in a cave somewhere that she was, you know, working, a bone that was somehow tied together, a broken bone. And she says that meant that there were people with this person, and usually they might have left him to die. But the minute they decided that they will have to carry him and carried him enough and brought him, this is where civilization was born from her perspective.
No, I didn't know that. That's very interesting. She has another very nice saying, never deny that a small group of people can change the world.
Yeah, well, that's for sure.
How things happen, yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our time is finished. It was such a great pleasure. And I was wondering if we can find another time and have another discussion on other issues.
I'm at your service anytime.
You're too kind. Thank you so much. I learned so much, and I'm sure that and hopefully next time it's going to be face-to-face.
Gladly.
Thank you so much.
Shalom,
Thank you so much.
Shalom.
Bye-bye.